Alright guys, nice sunny day. We're putting some primer on the old convertible here. See how we are. So it's looking good, an old high build. I figured I'd make a quick video on this primer because I know some people have been having some trouble with it. The quarter's not done yet. Don't be alarmed. I just put a coat of primer on there to give it a good block. But everything else is pretty much ready to go. So I figured get it in some primer, protect it a little bit, and this will just leave the inside to prime. That's got to be epoxied in there, spare steel. So yeah, let's go look at this primer. So the MP3-HS. This is Matrix highest build primer. And they actually go as far as to call it a surfacer. So right on there. And this should probably be treated as such. This has actually got more mils per coat than the feather fill. So you got this stuff here. This is considered a high build. You know, lay it down, block it, make it straight type primer. I use this every once in a while, but it's really all not that thick. Doesn't have that much build, is what I'm trying to say. It's a proper word, I guess. This is a gallon that I got special in for this car. I don't usually use this stuff. Usually I'm using the 2K PB buff in color. This is gray. It's an ultra high build surfacer primer. We'll go ahead and stir this up and I'll give you an idea of how thick it is. I've got it pretty stirred up. I've already mixed one batch out of it, but there's nothing in the can as far as reducer or anything like that. The stick will stand straight up in it with it stirred and mixed. So this stuff is super badass thick. I was talking to somebody about this stuff, and I've got guys that use this with a roller. They roll it on and they get really good results. And the guy sort of laughed at me. He never heard of that before. I told him that Millrick had done a video on it, and they actually sell primer rollers at your body shop supply store. You can buy a roller to roll the primer on. A lot of shops would like to roll it rather than spray it because of the overspray issue. So in some cases, you know, small areas, you can't roll a whole car obviously, but if you're doing the small repair area, yes, you can. And I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I know Millrick did do a video, Millrick 77, so check that out. Some guys, this primer says to be mixed 4 to 1. I mix it 4 to 1 to 1 with reducer. This is my last part. It says in the manual not to use reducer in it, but I have talked to the guys at Matrix and they say it's okay to put some reducer in it. You have a 3.0 tip. You have a 3.0 tip or a 2.5, you know, you might be able to lay this stuff out with no reducer in it. So the only reason that you put reducer in it is to be able to spray it with the equipment that you have. The other thing, if you're spraying this primer, like I was spraying it, I sprayed my first coat on there, we're letting it flash off. You gotta rinse your gun out. Whatever gun you're using, you have to rinse out with lacquer thinner because it will not, the gun won't stay clean long enough just to pour another cup of primer in it. So make sure you clean your gun out with some lacquer thinner between coats. It's important. It can really affect the way the product comes out of the gun. Because if you just pour the new on top of the old, it can get coagulated and not dry properly and all that good stuff. So anyway, we got this pretty rinsed out. I left a little thinner in it. I'm not just pouring out on the floor. I got a cup back there. I don't have my gloves on, which is no. Let me grab some gloves so I don't get dirty. through right here. So anyway, 4 to 1 to 1 is okay. So I had to talk to the lab rat and matrix, and he said that they've had to reduce it, and as long as you don't get carried away, you're fine going 1 part. So I used to tell people 10%, and 1 part's just much easier, and it seems to spray better at 1 part. So we got our primer in here. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our hardener next. Got it filled to the 6 mark in the 4 to 1 to 1 column. Next with our hardener. It's very important to never ever catalyze the primer to try to make it thinner. Always use reducer, because then you just have a real mess on your hands when you do that. I'm using 885. I like a hot reducer when I'm reducing primer, because it lets the overspray from the primer lay down. You don't get that dry spray that a lot of guys complain about. Just mix this stuff up really good, and you almost have to scrape the sides of the cup to get this all mixed. Best way to mix this is if you have a quart can and a shaker, throw it in a quart can, throw it on the shaker for a minute and shake it up. We're just going to stir it. I never mix more than a batch at a time of this, because it does dry pretty damn quick. It's fast drying. And the longer it sits in the cup, the thicker it gets. So as it starts its catalyzing process, it becomes thicker and thicker. That's why it's key to clean the gun out in between coats. So you see I'm sweeping the side of the cup, trying to get all this stuff mixed up here. Make sure you get the bottom stirred up good, the sides. Alright, I think we're good. We're going to filter this with the filter strainer. Full load. This should be it for this car. Last coat here. Let's go in here. I'll get my respirator. I think it's in here. It's right here. Alrighty. Here it is. Let's start on the hood, apron, stuff like that. Now we're going to work on the hood. You got to remember to keep your overlap super tight when you're doing the primer. Super tight on the overlap. coats on your primer. You don't want a bunch of dry shit all over the car when you prime it. Pretty much it. I don't know how much of that you got. Quick walk around the car. I want you to see that there's no dry spray on the car. It's nice and silky smooth. You saw me mix it. There's no peel in it. I used the Develvis GTI on this with a 1.5 tip. You can see it went on really nice and wet. 885 reducer. It got no overspray, no dry spray, and I got 2 heavy coats of high build on here. So now we'll be able to hit this with some 180. Just definitely need some more body work back there. But as far as the rest of the car, other than this corner, you know, it's a 400 and go. Now what I can do for some guide coat, You can either buy guide coat in the can now, or what you can do is you can put a little black base in your gun. You can use base coat for your guide coat. Works real well. So there you go. I just wanted you guys to see, if you mix that 4:1:1, that it will come out of the gun, and it will lay down really nice. This stuff will have like a satiny shine to it. You can see where it's the light's reflecting off of it. There's no dry spray. The key is to get close to the gun, slow down, get that stuff on there wet, and double your overlap up. Go right on top of the wet, move down slow. When you're painting, you know your overlap's going to be increased more, but when you're priming, you want to keep your overlap as tight as possible, and especially when you're using a thick product like that. As far as the gun adjustments on this gun, my fluid adjustment on the bottom is all the way out, and my fan is turned in probably a half to a quarter of a turn, 3/4 of a turn. So that'll give you enough concentration to get the primer out usually. Now if we were using the 2K PB down there, you could go right through a 1.4 tip with that at regular pressures, and it's a much thinner body product. It's a primer. It's a high build primer, but it doesn't say surfacer on the can. This is a surfacer. This is for a very ultra high build, you know, situation where you want to block something straight. I prefer to spread the panel with the Bondo, the hack way, you know, as some people refer to it, to make my part straight, and I don't have to prime the car so many times. But however you do it, you know, it can be a real pain in the ass and the primer goes on dry. I know what you guys are fighting, but I think if you mix it like I just showed you and follow the steps that we just used, you'll have really good luck with it. One of the key things is, I think a lot of you guys that are beginning, primer is one of those things that, you know, you get better and better at it as you use it, but you're going to find when you're using your paint gun, the closer you can get to your work without touching it with the gun, the better the product's going to lay out for you. There's not a run in this anywhere. So there's guys out there to give you the, oh, you get too close, you'll get a run or orange peel argument, and we shouldn't have that. So we'll let this gas off for about probably about 40 minutes, and we'll come in here and hit it with some guide coat. Lay one good guide coat down on it, and see what we're going to do from there. I don't know. I got another fender that needs to be straightened. Actually, 2 more fenders, and I have the other one in primer right there. And I've got this other one that I've been treating with the rust killer on the back side, and then I have a front back there to do. But I don't know where we stand on this car, so I was told to put it in primer. So but anyway, that's where we're at. So I hope everybody enjoyed it, and that's the primer video for the high build primer.